All right. Don't have a lot of time today, so get started. I think I ended the last video with me saying that I would try to finish up the alias setup in the firewalls, and I did not get to that. So that's okay. What I will do is move on to another layer of security that I would recommend. And I've done a video on this in the past, so if you want the detail, we will link to that in the notes here on the live stream. We'll link to that video, and it goes into quite a bit of depth about how to set it up, how to register for an account, and was one of our more popular videos. Not that any of our videos are that popular, but it's a good video, it goes into detail, and it's a really good features. And that's the GeoIP filtering. Okay, so at what we've been talking about so far from a security posture is what type of traffic do we want to allow in and out of our various networks? And again, that's going to range depending on what you're trying to do in any number of sort of configurations and different things that you want to allow in, allow out, allow between networks. And again, that's at the state level, and you're just saying, hey, this traffic type from this IP address, allow it to this network, or in this network, out of this network, etc. And so that's stateful packet filtering. That's what that is. You're basically looking at the packet and you're saying, hey, it includes these things, and based on these rules, allow it or disallow it. Another layer of that is taking the source and destination and classifying it based on location. So, and with OPNSense, we can, for free, do this in a very generic sense where we're blocking or allowing countries in or out of our network. So if you're, and you may want to do this if you see certain traffic coming from certain areas, or if you're concerned about, um, you know, hackers trying to get in from other countries or whatever. I mean, if you're a local business and you don't need people from Russia or China or Trinidad, Tobago, I think that's how you say it, accessing stuff you're hosting, then why not block them? It's just, it adds a layer of protection against potential theft. And if you're going to start hosting stuff in your own network, then filtering that traffic based on where it's coming from is a layer that you're going to want to implement. So what we're going to do today is kind of bring up our demos, and we won't refer to our design. It's going to be a fairly quick, I got to get out of here no later than 10:30, so I'll probably end it even sooner than that. But we're just going to go over the sort of the basics of setting up the one second, setting up the geo filtering. And let me switch over here. Okay. So we've got our demo here. Let me bring up demo deb. Where are you, demo deb? Where'd you go? There you are. Okay. So we're in our demo firewall here. And last week we were talking a lot about aliases. And if you noticed in the aliases section, there's a tab here called GeoIP settings. Okay. And by default, this is empty. It's not configured. And all we need to configure it is a URL. So we're going to basically grab that URL. Well, I'll go over the basics of how this is set up. So there's a company called MaxMind, and they offer, all you have to do is register an email address, and they offer the ability to give you this free GeoLite database where they give you at the country level which IP addresses, which public IP addresses are coming from which country. Okay. And then it allows you to create an alias based on that database of countries that you can then use to block traffic from a stateful perspective like we were doing last week. And so it's very straightforward. You basically go to this link. So I'm here in OPNSense's documentation. Just search for MaxMind GeoIP. The basics of it are you go to this URL, you sign up. It's free. Again, it's free. You don't need to pay anything. You might want to use an email address that you don't mind getting spam too. So there is always a cost to these things, but it's very minor, something we're all used to. You fill this out, and they're going to give you a, let me log in here. They'll give you access to a GeoLight to country database. Okay. Now I can do a city level, but that gets kind of granular. It's country level's fine for what we're doing here. Okay, and then let's go back to their documentation. You generate a license key, and then you create a link that includes the license key, the database, the addition of your license, so in our case, the GeoLight to country, CSV, and then your license key and the suffix, yeah. So you just need your license key because that basically identifies you in the system. So, and then what you do is you take that URL and you paste it. You paste it into this. I just showed my bits. You paste it into this URL here. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to block my bits so that you can't see my bits. How can we do that? Let's see. Let's just put that back up for a second. All right. Oops. And we'll fumble around and waste precious time here. All right. Now, once you, in fact, what I'm going to do, let's see. All right, let's do this transition here. All right. Once you get that, you can create an alias here, and this is my actual firewall. So we have the GeoIP settings. You can see that it was last updated in February. And so that means there haven't been many changes. And then you have the URL here. Click apply. Then we come to our aliases. And we can create an alias. So I have, for example, created an alias called block countries. We'll go ahead and go and edit this. And you basically pick the countries you want to block, and it bases it on region and then the country within the region. Okay. So for this alias, there is one country that is unblocked. You can see, so here's 50 out of 50, 52 out of 53, 1 out of 1. So the only one is in America. I don't have the United States blocked. Okay. So basically, this is going to block everything except IPs coming from the United States. Okay. And then what you do is you have your alias. Okay, so that's like the aliases we were creating last week. Like, for example, we had one called Google. Yeah, we created one called Google. And then in your rules, what you would do is for your WAN rules, let's do actually, I did it, so I have multiple IPs. and I have and we'll get into this at a later date, but since I have multiple ISPs, I've created an interface group called WAN interfaces. And then I created a rule that says, okay, on this group of interfaces, which is my Cox and my Verizon, block anything coming from this alias. So it blocks all traffic, all ports, IPv6 and 4 from these countries, okay? And so this is just another layer of security that you can employ in your environment that gives you a higher level of security. And now if we wanted to see if that's working, we can come here to in our firewall, and then in our log files, we can come to live view, okay? And we can see, is there anything coming? Is there anything hitting on this rule that we just created, okay? So we're going to do label contains. Okay, actually, let me go back because this is going to need a little bit of explanation, sorry. Let me come back to WAN interfaces and go into edit this rule, okay? So I have a description called blocked GeoIP, okay? And in the system, that's considered a label. So I can actually leverage that in my logging, or, in my logging to pull information or, details or activity related to this particular rule. I also have a category called security that I've applied to this, and I'm logging these packets, okay? So that when I go to the log files and go to live view, I can say, give me anything that has a label of blocked. I've already forgotten, I think it's GeoIP, okay? If I hit apply, give it a second. Oh my gosh. I think I'm back here. This is funny. I'm going to call it block GeoIP. Yeah, that's right. Okay. I've had this on for so long, they've probably given up. Live view. I want to do label contains, oops, block GeoIP. I got to just be patient, I guess. So if something is blocked by this rule, it would show up here in the list. And of course, since I'm doing this live, I'm sure that it's not going to hit here. Let's see. Actually, let's do this. Rules. Let's open a new tab. And let's go to my Verizon. Blocked countries. Oh, that's why. I don't actually have that anymore. Hold on a second. Ooh. Ooh. We're doing it live here. Ah, yes. Okay. I need to change this actually. All right. Let's come back to aliases. Nate doesn't remember what it's called. Geo. Blocked countries. All right, so I had, actually that was from my earlier video. I'd created a duplicate of it, and I'm still using it, I just realized, in one of my rules, okay? So on the WAN interface, this is group. I'm gonna edit this. And instead of using this old blocked countries, which doesn't exist anymore, or shouldn't exist, blocked GeoIP, I mean, we're gonna use blocked countries. Oof. And we'll call this blocked countries. Hmm. All right, fixing it live. Thank you for watching. I'm done now. I can go home. All right, apply changes. Now, if we get rid of this filter here because that's inaccurate and we add this, we should see some activity. All right, so that's, I mean, it really is pretty simple. The hardest part is signing up for the account here. And you know, once you get this, it's pretty straightforward in terms of the documentation is very specific. It does a really good job of, you know, gives you the exact URL that you need to create or generate. And really the only thing you have to change in this URL is this part right here, the license key. All right. So we have a few viewers here. I do apologize. I have a meeting I have to run to, but I have a few minutes if there's anybody on watching at the moment. If you have any questions or if there's anything you want to talk about or share, or if you have any ideas regarding what are some of the other things that we should be looking at from a stateful perspective, making sure that our posture is solid, that we're not letting anything in that shouldn't be getting in an obvious manner. Keeping in mind that later on we will be adding some higher level filtering, which gets into more of like, okay, we're allowing this information in from this source, but is the information we're allowing safe? And so that gets into more of the application filtering, or what we call sort of at a higher layer, layer 7 filtering or layer 4 filtering. There's some other different aspects of filtering that we're going to talk about to make sure that our firewall is not being fooled because we either, you know, aren't blocking something at the state level and it's getting through, but we really need to inspect the actual traffic that's coming in and going out of our network. Make sure that there aren't actually viruses in the data stream, or that there's not some potential hack that's taking place, and we can block that traffic at the application level. So we'll give a few more minutes here. I know this is kind of a short one and I've been fumbling around here, but unfortunately today is a busy day and I need to kind of get scooting here. The other thing I just kind of wanted to follow up on is in my last live stream, talked a little bit about the motivation behind doing doing these videos, and at the risk of becoming political, it's not really political technically speaking, but you know, depending on where you fall in the whole privacy and cloud and, you know, hosted public cloud versus private cloud versus, you know, which one's more secure, which one's more convenient, you know, is it better to pay monthly versus buy your own equipment? You know, is the ownership society, if you will, really dead? And if it is dead, how can we revive it? I think, you know, one of the hard things is that the cloud is very convenient. In fact, the technology is so convenient that most people, if you ask them, they're just kind of like shrug and say, well, what, you know, what's the big deal? Why wouldn't I, like, why would I want to deal with the headache of having my own server, or having to deal with, you know, configuring these firewalls, or making sure that if my power goes out, that it's, you know, that my stuff doesn't go down, you know, that kind of thing. I think one way to think about it is that the cloud is really at its base level someone else's computer. And so you really have to trust the person that you're hosting, or the service that you're using, to make sure that you're not, that convenience that you're experiencing now doesn't become the most inconvenient thing. Because again, to one of my points last week, the centralization of data and information is the centralization of power. There, I believe that 100%. And the reason I say that is because power is agency, right? If I have the power to do something, that's me being an agent in the world. And so information, okay, when I, like, let's say I want to send an email as a very basic example, okay? I can send an email using a public cloud service like Gmail, and that is information that I am sharing with someone else based on my action. Okay? Now, that very simple act of sending an email requires that you trust Google in this case, in this example. And why wouldn't you trust Google? They're perfectly trustworthy. They wouldn't censor you. They wouldn't spy on you. They wouldn't take the information that you're sending in that email and use it to, send to their advertisers. Obviously, we all know they're doing that, but they wouldn't use it for any other purpose, would they? If the information in the email you were sending offended somebody at Google and the AI said, hey, there's a keyword here, you might want to look into this guy. And then, Congress last week passed a law that you can't say anything bad about Christmas trees or whatever. And just so happens in your email, you said something along the lines of Christmas trees are bad, but it wasn't quite, exactly bad. And again, this is a silly example, but use your imagination. That is power, right? That service, that email service, is the very definition of power. And so these are the things that you have to think about when you're deciding, should I swim upstream a little bit? Meaning, is the inconvenience of having to learn these sorts of things or run my own server or have my own agency in the world, is that inconvenience really that bad compared to the inconvenience that you could potentially have by using these public services where at any moment they could kick you out, shut you off, report you to the authorities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I'm not saying that you need to do it to hide anything, but the point is there's a great book called 3 Felonies a Day, and I forget the name of the author, but the book premise is that you right now, most likely today, will violate at least 3 felonies on average. You will become a felon 3 times over today without you even knowing it, right? And the thing about it is the gathering of information and the access to the information you're sharing, the things that you're talking about with your loved ones, your business partners, your clients, etc. That information is power, and it can be levered against you without you even knowing it, without you even thinking that you've done anything wrong. And that is the true danger of giving up your agency and not being able to run your own technology. And so wasn't a very eloquent explanation, but I guess we'll just end there. It's about 10:24, 10:25. Don't have any comments or chat, questions or anything. So we'll just go ahead and end the stream. I got to get going. I appreciate you watching. Hopefully this very quick video, again, we'll put the link to the longer video in the description here, so you can add that as a layer on this 7-layer dip that we're creating with our OPNSense firewall. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful weekend and good luck to you. Take care.